Pakistan. Pakistan has had a growing association with the World Economic Forum over the past few years, with the attendance of President Musharraf last year and the Prime Minister this year. It's also, from an editorial perspective, had a growing importance and interest for two big reasons. First of all, the economic transformation that you, Prime Minister, have been particularly associated with. As you say in your interview with Global Agenda, Pakistan has broken the begging bowl. Obviously, there's also been a growing geopolitical importance with your joining the coalition against terror with the United States in the past few years. As you expressed it in your interview, Pakistan now plays a stabilizing role as an anchor for peace and tranquility in this part of the world. We at Global Agenda have been delighted to run interviews with the President last year and with you this year. And we are honoured to host with the Pathfinder group this breakfast to give all of you participants the chance to explore further the reforms that Pakistan is undertaking under your stewardship. So, Prime Minister, you're very welcome indeed.
Thank you.
I don't know. Do I need this?
Yes, if you don't have a... You can sound. That seems to work. You can use that.
Mr. Prime Minister, is it working? Mr. Prime Minister, it is indeed a very big privilege for me and a great pleasure
The mic is
not.
No.
use this.
No, it's
Maybe I can speak like this. On behalf of the World Economic Forum, to welcome you here in Davos, and also your very distinguished delegation. It's a real pleasure for us because we have had a long, over a decade, association, and maybe I can even say friendship with you. You came in your former position as a very distinguished banker, and we always greatly appreciated your many contributions, your ideas, and your intensive investment and interactive presence in Davos. When you became the finance minister, we were very proud, and we were very happy for Pakistan. We thought that this was one of the best things that could have happened to your country. And very soon, it proved right. You started in a big way the recovery of the economy. The growth was back. Investment came in. Export grew. Privatization. Further reforms. And I think today we can say that Pakistan is one of the most open economy in the region. So we were delighted, and we kept our relation and our cooperation with you. When you became Prime Minister, we were even prouder, and we really acclaimed that decision, because we feel that under your leadership, Pakistan will move further and further. Growth is again on, and I think you have great ambitions for further growth of the country. Industries, manufacturing, agriculture, services are really on the rise. Relations with India are improving. This all will make Pakistan a privileged destination for investment and for cooperation with foreign companies. So, Mr. Prime Minister, we wish you all the best, and we look forward to continue our very fruitful, rewarding and enriching cooperation and association with you. We wish your country the best, and we welcome again all of the distinguished ministers and members of your delegation to Davos once again. Thank you for being here.
Before I request the Prime Minister to speak, I would like to give a few thank yous. First of all, thank you, 200 of you who have come at 7:30 in the morning for this breakfast. Second, I want to recognize people from Global Agenda who did a terrific job to produce one of the finest supplements that has been produced for Pakistan. And I would like to thank Margaret and David Derrick. David, please stand up, wherever you are. And Will Goodhart, and Stella Conway, and Hissam, and Sami Aknine, and people who are not here. I'd also like to thank my friends and who have packed here, people like Nandanjeet Khemka, Jamshed and Mrs. Godrej, and of course Drew and Rati, and our friends, mutual friends, David Lemon, and Roman Kynes and Gerda Kynes, who drove up all the way from Zurich to be here, and a lot of you. I'd also like to say that in 5 tables there are ministers. On table number 2 there is Mr. Khurshid Kasuri, who is the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, and on table number 1 there's Dr. Abdul Hafiz Sheikh, who is the Minister of Privatization. Then we've got Mr. Humayun Akhtar on table number 6, who is the Minister for Commerce, and we've got Mr. Uwais Laghari, who is the Minister for IT, and then we've got Mr. Jahangir Tareen, who is the Minister of Industries, on table number 4. All right. So, other than that, I just want to, before I said, I'd just like to take one moment of silence. I would like to mention here that Dr. Hafiz Sheikh lost his mother a week ago today, and he's here, and which a fine lady, fine values, and 2 days later he lost his uncle also, but he's here, and we're grateful to you for coming for this. Prime Minister, we've been in Davos for a long time, and it was really heartening to hear you speak yesterday on modernization, whether westernization would go with it. Now, a lot of people know that Pakistan is at the cutting edge of terrorism, and you more than anything else got the full impact of it. Now, I must tell you that this was anticipated, that something like this would happen. But we have a saying, which I keep repeating, it is not what happens to you that matters, but how you behave while it's happening. Umar Ayub, the Minister of State for Finance, who drove the Prime Minister from the place of the accident to the, first of all, back to the PM's house, he kept on saying throughout the way that he was more worried about his staff. And then he did not take the security advice and went straight to the hospital. And that shows something. That shows, and like he said yesterday, it revived him morally and spiritually. Mr. Prime Minister, I would request you now to talk about Pakistan, and we'll have a question and answer session after that. And we'd like you to really go over the whole parameters of what you think is the vision, your vision for Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikram, and let me wish all of you a good morning, and thank you for coming so early in the day to hear me talk about Pakistan and where it's going. Let me also thank all the organizers, the Global Agenda and the Pathfinder group, Mr. Ikram Sehgal in particular, for making this event possible. I thought what I'll do in the next 30 minutes or so, give you a brief overview of what Pakistan is all about and how it's changing. And that won't take 30 minutes, I'll do it in a shorter time. So we have time for questions, because I know that all of you have to go on to other things around 8:30. Sorry about this. Yeah, it's okay. Can you hear me now better? Yes. Yeah, sorry about that. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, coming to Davos is a very exciting experience for many of us. When I first came here about 14 years ago or so, Davos was still Davos, but very different. There were no traffic jams. It was like a club. Everybody knew each other. However, the world has to move on. Today, Davos, or the World Economic Forum, is a collection of many more people. But then, as I was telling Klaus Schwab yesterday, that coming to these meetings and what you get out of them is up to the individual. You can get a lot out of them, or you can just get nothing out of them. In most of our cases, as you know, we strive to meet each other, understand each other, and build the linkages and the bonds which help us. So today, as Prime Minister, as I was reflecting last night, being here and having come here for so many years, it really opens your mind and it gets you thinking about many issues which otherwise in your daily routine you may not focus on. Coming to Pakistan, Pakistan, as most of you know, is a country in the news, a country of 150 million people, located in a part of the world which is always attracting attention. For reasons known to everybody, we are located in a part of the world where South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East cross each other. So there we are in a very pivotal position, looking at the world, and our vision of Pakistan, the way we look at Pakistan going forward, is a moderate, vibrant Islamic country located at this very important part of the world, which is serving and will serve as the anchor of peace and stability in the region. With our 150 million people, till 5 years ago we were sort of going sideways. Many people talked about Pakistan as a failed state, and we are delighted to disappoint them, because in 5 years not only have we got out of that morass we were in, but frankly we are looking ahead with a lot of energy, a lot of vigor, and a lot of enthusiasm. Looking at Pakistan today, let me start by saying that the Pakistan of today and tomorrow is not the Pakistan of yesterday. There has been a sea change, but at the same time we have a lot more to do. We are not short of challenges either. I'll talk about some of them in a while. There are 3 main pillars of activity we have focused on. These include, and are relevant for any country, a strong economy, a vibrant economy, an opportunity-creating economy. Second, a credible political process, which is stable, which adds to the quality of governance and the quality of how things happen in a country. And thirdly, internal and external security. So these 3 pillars of activity or areas of activity have drawn a lot of our focus in the last 5 years since President Musharraf took over and we started this transformation process. And we are moving along on this journey, which is far from over, but we are very determined to stay the course and excel in all 3 areas. Now, if you look at the economy very briefly, because I think these supplements, etc., have all the details, Pakistan is moving to a higher growth path. This year we expect growth to reach about 7% GDP growth. Last year the actuals were 6.4% growth. So our goal was, when we started 5 years ago, we've got to reach a range of 6 to 8% growth consistently over many years to impact the levels of poverty and really improve the standard of living and quality of life of the people. Now, the per capita income this year is expected to reach $700 per head, purchasing power parity well over $2,500 per head, etc., etc. Let me warn you, ladies and gentlemen, per capita figures are averages, which mean there are people above it, but there are many people below it also. So naturally, one of our constant challenges is to do more for the vulnerable, do more for the people who live below the poverty line, around 30% of the population. And that's happening. When you get 6 to 8% growth consistently over time, you are bound to impact everybody, some more, some less. But the basic philosophy which drives us is creating opportunity. We are there to open the door, to have, from an economic and other standpoint, an environment which allows people to do better. So when you follow this philosophy and you open the door, some will benefit more than the others. And the onus is on the individual to take advantage of this opportunity. Having said that, I'll repeat again, for those who can't benefit from all this, we are helping the vulnerable segments of society. In addition to improvement in the macroeconomic situation in Pakistan, no improvement in the macroeconomic situation in any country is ever sustainable unless it is backed by credible structural reform. Reform is difficult, reform is painful, reform requires a lot of political will and a consistency and continuity of policy. Easier said than done, but in 5 years, we have reformed many sectors of Pakistan, and I won't take you through all of them except to say that some of the ones we did well, some we have much more work to do. This included the education, health and social services, the justice system, the financial sector, capital markets, the fiscal side. Just to give you one example, when we came on board, the fiscal deficit of Pakistan was 7% of GDP and rising. And literally, in the first month in office, we did not know how we'll pay next month's bills. It was that bad. That's way behind us now. Today, our fiscal deficit is close to 3% of GDP. And not only that, we have increased development expenditure, and through a massive fiscal tax reform, the rates of duties and other taxes are coming down rapidly. And the collection is going up in double-digit numbers ahead of expectations. Naturally, it's fueled by growth, but the message or the lesson we learned is that lower tariffs and taxes are better than higher taxes, provided you have growth and provided you simplify the system. One of the things we've done is reduce the contact between taxpayer and tax collector, and so on and so forth. The other area where Pakistan excels is in the financial sector. I think it is a model for many developing countries. Today, 85% of our banking system is in private hands, and we are trying to make it 100% and working very hard at that. When we started, it was much higher, because we believe that the private sector is the engine of growth, and a good banking system can be a catalyst for growth, and it is not the business of government to be in business. We really want the private sector to take everything and run. And the paradigm we had in mind, which is, I would say, partly implemented, is that the government becomes a policy maker only. In major sectors, we have independent regulators now. This is a new concept, who judge, who oversee an industry, watch for public interest and the investor's interest, and then all commercial activity goes to the private sector. That's what we are trying to achieve. We don't have 100% purity yet, but we're getting there. And we have a massive, nothing is taboo in terms of privatization. We now have the telephone company coming. We have the oil company. When we started mentioning it, everybody around the table said, if we privatize this, it will be a severe security risk. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those same companies now are on for sale. We have a lot of interest from all over the world, and nothing is a security risk anymore. And the country is still going ahead. So these taboos have to be challenged, and we have to attack them head on. And once the momentum builds, people fall in line. So much for the economy. And let me now, on the political process, Pakistan went through 3 years of government, which was a military government, and President Musharraf, when he took over, said he will keep it at that level, 3 years or so, I think. In fact, the Supreme Court gave him permission to do that. And then we'll have elections. We had elections, we had parliament, and not only that, at the local level, for the first time, we introduced a process of political devolution, where everybody from the village level up was elected, and then we had elected mayors, and that whole process at the grassroots level for the common man is now coming together and working well. So their local needs and local problems are addressed right at the spot. Since then, all of us fought elections, we got elected, and here we are. And in that process, we had some excitement, as you alluded to. The suicide bombing attack on me and the president. We survived, and God is great. That's all I can say. So that political process is evolving. It's an evolutionary process. We are not apologetic about how we are achieving this and how democracy is flourishing in Pakistan. Let me just make 2 or 3 points in this context. One, that we have a very vibrant opposition, and the assembly is as active as you would expect. Number 2, the press in Pakistan is totally free, and we are now going into the big shift taking place in many countries, including Pakistan, is the proliferation of the electronic media. About 20 new channels are coming, all private. News, entertainment, music, what have you. 37. I stand corrected. So there's a proliferation of media which is healthy, keeps the government on their toes, but with press freedom comes a tremendous requirement for responsibility of the press. And that will evolve. I think these things are evolutionary, which gradually then settle down at some level. Moving ahead on security, internal and external. What do I mean by that? Naturally, no country, if they don't have the internal security position and law and order under control, can expect to progress or expect to give a level of confidence to its own citizens or to investors or visitors from overseas. You'll be pleased to know that one of the problems we have today, I'm very pleased about this problem in some ways, you can't find a hotel room in Pakistan, in Karachi, Lahore or Islamabad, and getting an airline booking is even more difficult. We are going to fix this through very quick addition of rooms and flights, but this is because the growth is there and people are coming and activity is happening. And all those travel advisories, which in the past were excuses not to come, now are there, but they don't exist. So, what this tells you is the profit motive, or if you have economic opportunity, people find a way to take advantage of it, which is good. So on the internal security front, our situation changed post 9/11. I don't need to take you through what happened, but the result or the impact on Pakistan, because Afghanistan was next door and that was sort of the hotbed of a lot of this activity, that people started running helter-skelter. And Pakistan got a disproportionate share of people who really shouldn't be there. So, and I can tell you, when the attack on my vehicle took place, I had police all around the vehicle, literally. But they were not trained to look at a person who was a trained terrorist coming and trying to attack. There were people who would do the beat, check the locks at night for the shops, that type of stuff. And here you're dealing with well-trained, well-equipped, professional terrorists. So, just as an aside, this is one of the few attacks which was totally recorded on the video, and every major tape. So I've looked at it many times and seen these poor cops are standing there chatting away and had no idea what's going to happen. Neither did we, of course. But anyway, I think the internal security, we have now, with help of friends and our own efforts, spent a lot of resources to train our police force and really invest in the preventive side, which is in the intelligence capability, so that the security risk, which is largely from foreign elements, but also they have local support, that can be contained and checked. And if you see the papers, the extent of such activity is reducing rapidly in Pakistan. Occasionally you have a blip, but really the whole investment in this effort is paying good results. Then you come to external security. On the external security front, Pakistan believes in peace. Pakistan believes, as you know, we are a nuclear power too. Pakistan believes in having no aggressive designs against anybody. We just don't want to be harassed or bothered by anybody because we want to pursue economic growth, etc. So, with the change in the post 9/11 situation, traditionally our defense strategy was more looking at the eastern side, vis-a-vis India. I have many friends from India here, so I think they'll know what I mean. Now, with the events moving the way they did, suddenly the Afghan border, which had a few border guards, and the Iranian border less so even, the Afghan border became a major reason for deployment. And that required a shift in our whole defensive posture, which we have done and achieved. And for the first time ever, we have the Pakistan army in the tribal areas, which were taboo for anybody to go in. And they've had their impact, and things are quietening down. This doesn't mean we don't have sporadic issues occasionally, but I'm looking at it from a very broad perspective. So that's the three areas we focused on very briefly. We are moving ahead. What are the challenges going forward? The challenges we face are staying the course. The worst thing any country can do is take U-turns every so often. The challenges we face that we live in a neighborhood which constantly attracts attention. And as you know, when you live in a neighborhood like that, if you live in a neighborhood in your own house and you don't like the neighborhood, you can sell and move on somewhere. Countries can't change their neighbors. So I think it dawns on everybody that you have to learn to live with them. And we are trying to make progress in our relations with all our neighbors. And let me take them one at a time, very briefly. Then I'll stop and we'll go into the Q&A, which probably will be more relevant to what you have in your mind. If you look at Pakistan, we have four major countries on our borders. Let me start with Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a country which saw a lot of turmoil, but I would say that Afghanistan on many fronts has moved well along a path to build itself and secure itself and improve the quality of life of its people. Pakistan's economy and Afghanistan's are integrating rapidly. You will be surprised to know that this year our trade with Afghanistan will be $1 billion, and it is growing rapidly. We are just-in-time inventory for Afghanistan. Anytime they need something, they load it on a truck. It's in Kabul that evening or the next day. Nothing wrong in that. That's the way it ought to be. Many divided families across the borders, and we have 3.5 million refugees still, Afghan refugees in Pakistan, 1.5 million others, so we have 5 million total refugees in Pakistan. We are very open-hearted people. Anybody who has a problem comes and lives there. Sometimes the wrong people come in too, as you know. But what we are trying to do with the UNHCR, etc., is to gradually encourage these people to go back. It is difficult. A lot of them, about 2 million are in camps, 1.5 million are settled in the cities, and they are doing better business than some of the local population. So they have no desire to go back. Anyway, in the election for the president in Afghanistan recently, which I believe is a major event for Afghanistan, Pakistan played a very positive role. We supported the election process. There are many Afghans in Pakistan who voted in the presidential election. And despite apprehensions of many people, we were able to demonstrate that Pakistan will be a mature and responsible neighbor in this whole electoral process. And the message here I have for all my friends is, for other countries having difficult situations, the attitude of the neighbors and how they behave in difficult times can change the situation in that country. We supported the electoral process. We are delighted that President Karzai is back. We have a very close relationship with him, and we'll work together with him to help move things along. The other country we have in our neighborhood is China. We are one of the few countries which has a land route to China. And this is the Karakoram Highway, the old Silk Road. China is a very close friend of Pakistan. We are seeing tremendous increase in the economic relations between the two countries. You will be probably not surprised to know that every major contract, infrastructure project, large project in Pakistan, China is winning hands down. And the quality seems to be fine. They're competing aggressively, and they are everywhere. We were just in Beijing, and we are now building industrial parks for Chinese companies just to come and set up there, because China is entering a new phase where they will export capital, not just for financial assets, but move large parts of their production all over the world. I believe this is the case. Now time will tell. So we are getting ready for it. But relations with China are very close. We consult each other on all major issues. If you see, that leaves Iran and India. Let me do Iran and come back to India in a second. On Iran, we've had a very historical relationship with Iran, a lot of linkages, religion, language, what have you. And Iran is in the news again. So our desire is to build a closer relationship with them and engage them. And next month, the foreign minister and I will be the guests of the Iranian government. In fact, in a few weeks actually, where we are trying to engage them in many different ways. And we have a large border with Iran. But if you look at the trade levels, it's not very exciting. And if you take out energy trade, there's not much going on. So the potential is there, and we hope to move ahead on that front. With India, last January we started a process which actually started before that and on a back channel track 2 basis. And both countries agreed when Prime Minister Bajpai visited Islamabad to start a composite dialogue and start a peace process. That has moved along, and when the elections took place in India, Mr. Bajpai's party lost. And a new team came in with the Congress party. So naturally, whenever there's a change in government, things get sort of stalled a bit and then you take off again. So we've engaged the new government directly and indirectly. I've met my Indian counterpart about 6-8 weeks ago in Delhi. I went there. President Musharraf met Prime Minister Manmohan Singh at the UN General Assembly. And next week again, I'm meeting Dr. Manmohan Singh in Dhaka at the SAARC summit. So we are engaging. At the same time, minister level talks, official level talks are all going ahead as part of the composite dialogue. Pakistan wants peace with everybody, including India. And we want to have a dialogue and discussion on all issues and sort them out across the table. Our position is that we have to move ahead on all issues, including economic cooperation, including travel and tourism, including sharing of many best practices on both sides, in tandem with progress on the issue of the medical emergency. क्या हुआ हमारा?
Security man.
Oh, he's okay. Sorry about that. You okay? So, on India, we're trying to engage, and we want that progress on all issues with India is in tandem with progress on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, in addition, what we have tried to do is identify other areas where we can cooperate and work together. Number one, we have offered India energy corridor so that as their growth increases and they need more gas and hydrocarbons to meet their needs, they can look at the Middle East, Iran or Qatar, and use a land pipeline through Pakistan to meet their requirements. I believe that if we can have interdependencies and linkages, the relationships overall will get better. And that is why we have unbundled this from everything else and said, okay, let's try this out. It's a win-win for all countries. You will benefit, we'll benefit. By the way, we need the gas too. We are going to import it anyway from Qatar, Iran or Turkmenistan. As we speak, we are negotiating with all three. But if India can join, then it builds a dependency, linkage, which really helps improve relations. Secondly, I've suggested to Dr. Manmohan Singh that we should immediately open banks in each other's countries. Not because I worked in a bank, but I believe that this can then be the pivotal, one of the catalysts to get the private sectors talking to each other and trade flowing, etc. We already have flights, travel, tourists coming. We can do more and we will do more. Thirdly, we have suggested that vis-a-vis Kashmir, we start a bus service from Srinagar to Muzaffarabad being the capital of Azad Kashmir, which is on the Pakistani side, and Srinagar being the capital of Jammu and Kashmir. And that will allow people-to-people contact. Kashmiris can go from one side to the other, lower the temperatures, and then one thing will lead to the other. So that's what we are trying to do. There are several other initiatives. Through SAARC also, we are members of SAARC, and we have agreed in SAARC for a free trade area, SAFTA. The broad parameters have been agreed at the January summit in Islamabad. Now we have to do all the details, which we are engaged in, and I'm very hopeful that this will be the beginning of a much more enlarged trade regimes with all countries. SAARC, as you know, includes Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bhutan, India, and Nepal. So the regional trading pact will help move trade along. The total gambit of economic relations has to be moved on step by step. Somebody asked me, if you're privatizing, can Indian companies participate? I said, let's walk before we run. And I would still say that. Eventually, it will be a free world, but not today, because I think the political temperature has to be right. And if we take all these measures step by step, there is no doubt in my mind that we will move ahead. To me, the most exciting thing which can happen in South Asia is the gas pipeline. Other things also will, because it will reduce the trust deficit, it will improve the interaction between the two countries, and once again, if we have the linkages and interdependencies, those relationships stay forever. So that's where we are on our neighbors and the whole sort of geopolitical situation in the area. I can go on and on, but it's 8:30 and I think we should allow for a few questions.
Before you ask questions, I'd just like to recognize there's some big hitters here. Mr. Amre Musa is here. Thank you for coming. Mr. Gareth Evans, Mr. Peter Eigen, Richard Haas, and I'd say there's a very strong Pakistani delegation, media delegation, and two titans of Pakistani industry are here, Mia Mansha, Hussain Dawood, and of course Zakir is here, Tariq Kirmani. So we have
this is the company being privatized, and he's smiling. It was just Pakistan State Oil, security risk, you can never touch it. He's no longer a security risk. And Zakir Mahmood, who is president of Habib Bank, was appointed by me as the CEO of the bank when it was still owned by the government. And nothing can make me happier that the new owners, who are private people, said we'll keep the CEO with us, which vindicates us that we put the right person. All his life he's worked for a bank called Bank of America and then Indosuez, right, too. So, anyway, we're open.
I'd like to take this opportunity.
Who's going to
yes,
questions?
Now, questions? Mr. Gareth Evans, please.
Prime Minister, congratulations to you personally on the competence and the charm which all your friends expect you to be doing this job, and we're not disappointed. But let me ask you, if the political situation is indeed evolving as you say it is, and we're all hoping it will after so many false starts, how do you explain why President Musharraf has found it so difficult to divest himself of the military vehicle?
Yes. I was hoping you'd ask me that. That's why I was saving this for the question and answer session. I said that the political process in Pakistan is evolving and we are not apologetic about how we are going about it or defensive about it. The President of Pakistan decided, with full support from the ruling coalition, remember there is a functioning parliament and democracy, that one time till 2007 he should stay on as president and army chief, so that this whole process we've started on fighting terrorism and the whole security aspect does not waver in any way. Now you could argue that, look, if your democracy was so robust, you wouldn't need that, because, countries have terrorist threats. But that's what I meant when I said it's an evolving democracy. It's functioning very effectively, and if you ever visited us, you would see how active Parliament is and how active the opposition is. But we didn't want to take a chance. Now, there are many people, I will tell you, within Pakistan who don't agree with this. But the majority in Parliament voted. There was legislation passed that this be done. Incidentally, this is one time, and there's a timer on it. 2007, under the law passed by the Assembly, that dual office has to go. But it was legislation passed by a majority of the House, overwhelmingly, and the opposition did not agree, like any good opposition. But we think, if you take it in the context of where we are and where we are heading, this will help get us in a better situation security-wise, and this whole, all the various challenges we face. But as I said, there are many in Pakistan who don't agree with this, and our view is that 2007 will be here in a couple of, very quickly, and then the dual office thing legally is not possible.
Ikram?
Yes, sir.
My name is Christopher Graves from Hong Kong. Ikram, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for your great hospitality this morning. My question is, are you happy with or frustrated with the image of Pakistan in the world community? And if you think there's a gap between where it is and where it should be, what will you do, or are the hotel rooms full enough so that it doesn't matter?
No. I'm very happy, as I said, with the hotel rooms being filled up. But on a more serious note, we are not satisfied with the image which the country carries. And most of us have lived all over the world. We interact with many people like yourself. And there are two issues, and I'll be as frank as I can be. One, that post 9/11, the image of many countries, particularly in the Islamic world, is different than it used to be. And the further away you go from these countries, educated people, they have views on the Islamic world and where it's going, and views on many issues which I just talked about, which are not close to reality. But that's not the point. The point is that these perceptions in intelligent people, especially sort of accelerated after 9/11, are a very serious problem for the world, not just for Pakistan. And I think the world needs to focus more on interfaith understanding, in understanding each other. Just because I have a different name and you have a different name, it doesn't mean we are really different. We could still share a lot of common values. The other area is interfaith dialogue and discussion and harmony. I think if you look at whether you go to a mosque or a church or a synagogue, it really doesn't matter. The basic human values are the same. But the way all this is now being has manifested itself, creates a very negative perception in the minds of people. And Pakistan, of course, being in a neighborhood which attracts a lot of attention, and post 9/11, because a lot of people were in a country next door to us, where there was really no government at the time, where there was a government, but it was sort of encouraging these people to be there, we bore the brunt, more of the brunt. So what are we doing about it? We are engaging various people, we are traveling, we have a whole program now to improve the soft image of Pakistan, and the best way to do that is to get people to come. When they come, and I'm not exaggerating, they are quite surprised. They land at the airports, they see men and women working there, driving, life is normal, etc. But if you are not there, then the perception sticks in your mind. I don't blame anybody for it. I think we have to do more to put the facts on the table. That doesn't mean everybody will agree with us, but at least we should make a bigger effort. So that's what we are going to do. But the economic improvement is helping us. What happened till a year or two ago, that even buyers of our goods didn't want to come. They were meeting us in other countries. Now that's not the case. We have an expo in Karachi next week.
Yes.
And about 1,000 people from all over the world are coming. We actually expected much less, to be honest. But our problem now is, you must think I'm so concerned about this, but I am, that we don't have enough rooms in Karachi. So we're asking people to put people up at homes. But that's a good problem to have. Anyway, the image is an issue. The perceptions have to be improved. This is an ongoing process, and we are going to really address this to the extent we can. However, this has to be seen in the context of how Islam is perceived and how our region is perceived. And there are some deep issues which both sides have to work on. Because I believe that while people never admit it, but deep down, very biased views have crept in. And the more you travel in many countries, I won't name any, you realize that people really have, in some cases, the image of Islam and the Islamic world is really far from reality. And you have, no society, sir, is immune from a small segment having extreme views or different views. I think if I look around the room, in every country represented here, we've had situations in the past or today, and hopefully not again, where extreme behavior has manifested itself. And then related to this, if I can take the liberty on terrorism, I think we must also spend time to reflect on the root causes and how we can address them. Is it deprivation? Is it lack of income? Is it lack of solution of political issues? These are the issues we have to address. And I think all that will help improve. Mr. Godrej, sir, it's a pleasure to see you.
How do you assess the nuclear fail-safe mechanisms in Pakistan and also between India and Pakistan?
Yes. Pakistan has proposed to India certain arrangements related to deterrence and self-control on the nuclear issue, and that is being talked about. We hope you can also encourage your colleagues to look at it. I think they're looking at it, but we just need to move. Pakistan, I can speak for Pakistan, we don't support proliferation in any form whatsoever for any country. Secondly, in Pakistan, what we've done is the whole structure has been reorganized, and we have a command and control system now which is second to none, where everybody from the IEA and others have looked at, and we have a nuclear regulatory authority, independent, which is keeping a check on all the various activities related to this. We take this very seriously, and we believe there's a nuclear command authority which most of us are on. But more importantly, we have an independent regulator which is now checking. And you may be thinking of certain individuals like Dr. A.Q. Khan, etc. And those are people who are being polite, not referring to it, but let me address it. That this was one individual act which can happen anywhere. And this related to many years ago. But since the last couple of years, we've set up the new authority. And as you may know, that Dr. A.Q. Khan was relieved of his responsibilities well before this issue broke out as part of the new paradigm and the new structure. It's a very professional organization. I've spent a lot of time and effort in that area too. And the environment we've created now, we think we're very comfortable with. And it can meet the test of any review. Yes, sir.
Well, I had a construction company that builds heavy infrastructure. Pakistan is on a path of building their infrastructure all over again and to increase it. When do you think I will be able to bid for that process and actually secure a contract? Will it happen under your watch?
Well, I hope so. But I think it will happen, and let me not be diplomatic but very direct. It will happen when we can reduce the trust deficit further. And I don't want to harp on it again and again, that I think one of the best measures to do that is the gas pipeline. Because you need it, we need it, and that will create that linkage, which I think will get things moving. But we are open to any idea. And today the trust deficit is not at the level where you could do what you want to do. But philosophically, we have no hang-ups on it. If Pakistan, let me just say, sir, Pakistan as a country is totally open. We trade with everybody. It's a very open society that way. Our business and country has not been built behind high tariff walls. So mentally everybody is ready. It's now political issues.
David Lipton?
This should be the last two questions we'll take. 1 and 2. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Prime Minister, it was very interesting to hear from you over the Democrats here. I come from Israel. And how you see the relations between Pakistan and Israel on the background that Israel is really active in India, China, and other neighbors of the country.
At the moment, our policy is that we do not have any diplomatic relations with Israel. And the policy is driven by the fact that as the Palestinian situation gets towards resolution, then Pakistan can examine this. So that's the current policy.
Including trade?
Including everything, yeah. For the moment. Yeah.
So last question, please. This gentleman here.
Stephen Voss from Bloomberg News in London. Prime Minister, you mentioned that the gas pipeline is potentially one of the most exciting opportunities in your area of Asia. Can it be built without Indian cooperation, without India wanting it to be built? In other words, what are you stopping it from being built now?
Yes, I would say that I mentioned it briefly, that Pakistan has done a review of its needs for energy. And in the next few years, we will need to import a lot of gas to meet our own needs. And I told my Indian colleagues, including Dr. Manmohan Singh, that if you come along, we'd be delighted. We'd like to work with you. But if for some reason you don't want to come along, Pakistan is going to go ahead anyway. So call us when you're ready. That was exact verbatim discussion which we had across the table.
And we take one question from Mr. Sarfraz.
Excellency,
Yeah.
Pakistan is playing a very important role in
Yeah,
the
go on.
United Nations peacekeeping mission.
Mhm.
I would appreciate if you highlight this subject and convey it to both.
Certainly. I'm glad you raised it. Pakistan is, ladies and gentlemen, the largest contributor of troops to the UN system for peacekeeping operations. We do this, and we have done this despite the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, we had to deploy our forces on other borders which we normally didn't require any deployment in the past. But we are very committed to the peacekeeping efforts. And I was just in Brussels yesterday or day before, and the Belgian government and the Prime Minister, my counterpart, was telling me how important it has been for Pakistan to be active in Africa and many other places in the past. Even on tsunami, let me close by saying, even on tsunami, we are a small country with limited resources. We were one of the first to move our people around, and today hundreds of our people are in Indonesia and Sri Lanka with field hospitals, Pakistan Army, and hundreds of engineers rebuilding as we speak. So we are there to help with our meager resources, the whole world, and the UN system and the UN peacekeeping operations, we are right in front. If you look at the facts, Pakistan is the #1 contributor. We are very proud of that. I think we can play a role in promoting world peace and understanding. Thank you all very much, ladies and gentlemen. You've been a great audience. Thank you, Prime Minister. When you come to Pakistan, we'll make sure we get you the rooms.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much. Colette, I would like especially to thank Colette, because when we asked Colette, she had other problems, but she came, and thank you, Colette. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say on behalf of Jung Group, they said a lot of good words, and Geo TV, and Mahmood Sham is here, Arif Nizami is here, Aisha Zubairi, Zia Shahid. Thank you.
Thank you very much.